Ah, Gaichu, our newly resident ghoul. The storage room that functions as Gaichu's cabin is a cramped, overheated mess. Piles of old ship parts share space with tarnished cookware, flats of instant noodles, a collection of cast-off clothes, and reams of diagnostic manuals for obsolete computer hardware. To top it all off, there is barely any light whatsoever. All of the bulbs in this room are missing. Gaichu is busily moving boxes around, apparently in an effort to carve out some personal space amid the junk that he shares his cabin with. As you enter, he cocks his head and turns around. Are you okay with this room? Do you want a better room? Welcome to my sanctuary, SDKC. I apologize for the lack of light, but as I did not need it, Goblin took the bulbs for use elsewhere. Gaichu puts down the box that he's in the process of moving and politely bows his head towards you. How can I be of assistance? Don't you worry about bumping into things crammed in here. I just want to see how you're settling in. What do you think of the big Texas? I wanted to see how you were settling in. Gaichu rolls his shoulders in a diffident shrug. I live. I am among those who can make use of my services and who are not attempting to claim the bounty on my head. Is that not enough for now? The game has always finished the conversations before I get around to asking about the last run. Anyway, I need to talk about your condition being a ghoul. Gaichu inclines his head. As you wish. You are my benefactor, and as such I yield to you. Ask then, I will do my best to answer. Aside from... How do I know that the team is safe from you? I mean... He's lucid. Aside from being blind, how has it affected you? Aside from my heightened senses of smell and hearing, I am stronger, tougher, and more resilient than any mundane human. I can achieve feats of physicality that are normally restricted to adepts and those with extensive enhancements. Gaichu lifts one hand, fingers crooked to show off his elongated nails, claws really. And these as well, as sharp as any small knife. I prefer my sword, but in a grapple they come in extremely handy. He draws one nail over the surface of his shoulder blades. A hair-fine spiral of armor peels off in the nail's wake. Holy crap. Do you still need to sleep? Gaichu chuckles, his laughter rasping out over his lips. Unfortunately I do. I am not an undead creature of legend. If I manage to unlock the secrets of rest without sleep, I'll be certain to inform you. How do I know that the team is safe from you? Are you... I guess this is... I mean, are you always in control? Because I give you my word that I will not harm you or anyone else on the team. Gaichu squares his shoulders, expression stony. I am a man with a disease, not a mindless beast. My word is my bond. No, I'm just... What I mean is, does the disease affect your mind? Right, he said, I'm a man with a disease, not a mindless beast. But sometimes disease affects the mind. I'm just saying, does your disease affect your mind? I mean, if it's no, then it's no, that's fine. That's what I'm saying. I can accept that. Good. I would hate to think there is lingering distrust between us. No, I just want to know if your disease... Okay, fine, okay, I get it. It does. I thought ghouls were all animalistic predators. Most are. In the vast majority of cases, the infected becomes the crazed predators everyone sees on the nightly Trid news. Gaichu bares his jagged teeth, running his tongue across the tips of them as he tilts his head back. I bear the physical signs, but not the mental ones. A few escape that fate. Right. There are others, though. In Africa, there is a nation of ghouls. It's called Azamando. The intelligent ghouls in Azamando care for the ones whose higher faculties have been ravaged by the disease. Still, it's not a safe place to visit. So what makes you different? I am Wuvo. Those with a strong sense of self, a chip on the shoulder if you will, are always those that survive the infection with their minds intact. I suppose I am selfish enough to have retained a passable semblance of my former humanity. It seems like your condition has stabilized. But now it has. I will not suddenly become a ravenous beast lurking in the hold of your ship, at least no more so than I already am. Gaichu bares his teeth in a wry grin, dipping his head a little. Any thoughts about that last run? Gaichu shrugs, blinking a few times in surprise. What do you expect me to say? You have allowed me to live, invited me into your home, or boat if you prefer, and have given me a means to earn an income and use my particular set of talents. I am pleased with this. While I understand you desire to keep the elders alive to preserve whatever goodwill exists between you and the Wampons, I worry that such softness sends the wrong message to those in the underworld. There is a time for truth, but there's also a time for sending a message. I think you've sent the message already. Didn't you kill like 4 of them? Like 3 are left, you killed 4. I think they get the message, man. Come on. Is there anything else I can do for you? Why'd you pick the name Gaichu anyway? It was given to me. This is what the Japanese call ghosts. For the most part. I am vermin, a thing shunned by polite society, to be hunted and slain for a bounty. My old life is gone. It seemed as apt a name for the street as any other that I could choose. I like that attitude. It turns the table of power. Gaichu dips his head in agreement. One does not defeat the enemy solely by strength of arms. One must turn one's own weakness into strength. It is an old and valuable lesson, too often forgotten. Your armor is heavier than what most Shadowrunners wear, and more distinctive too. Gaichu nods, growling his assent. That is correct. It is the armor worn by the elite soldiers of the Rinraku corporate military, the Red Samurai. Who are the Red Samurai? The Rinraku's Military Special Operations Division, the most elite that the corporation has to offer, on par with Ares Firewatch or Tiangear's Ghosts. Red Samurai are world-class soldiers assigned to only the most difficult and important missions. How'd you manage to steal a suit of it? I don't think he stole it. I think he was a Red Samurai. Aren't they gonna come looking for your armor? Cocking his head back, Gaichu smiles grimly. Of course they are, but not for the reasons that you assume. What do you mean? I mean to say that they will come looking for me because I was bound by duty to commit seppuku rather than flee. Obviously I have failed in my duty, and that is a grave insult and embarrassment to the team. You were a Red Samurai? Indeed, for the entirety of my adult life, I was a member of the Rinraku military, specifically the Red Samurai. That changed relatively recently. I feel the reasons are abundantly clear. Hence, I still possess my armor, my sword, my training. They have served me well in both my previous life and in this one. How'd you end up in Hong Kong? I was searching for a cure. I needed a place where I could disappear into the shadows, find work, and evade capture if a cure did not materialize. The Yamato Act meant that it was even more dangerous to be in Japan than anywhere else. Gaichu smiles thinly, leaning back on his heels. I went to China, primarily because I still hoped to be able to return home. It felt less final if I fled to somewhere nearby. I first went to Shanghai, but Rinraku's presence there is significantly more robust than in Hong Kong. I learned that my previous unit had not stopped hunting me after I left Japan, so I decided to move further afield. Gaichu unfurls his hands, claws pointing towards the ceiling. Hence Hong Kong. Where else can anyone arrive and disappear without the city carrying one whit? Seattle comes to mind. If Rinraku were not building that towering arcology to dominate the skyline, I would agree with you. Since it clearly has that kind of influence in the city, it seemed unwise to make my residence there. Gaichu runs his nails over his chin. Besides, I've always liked Hong Kong. It has more character than the UCAS. I mean, it is... character is a polite way of saying it. Since arriving here, I've drifted between neighborhoods, selling my services to those who are unafraid of my appearance and condition. It has not been as profitable as I had hoped. How'd you end up running the shadows? Gaichu rasps out a coughing laugh that reverberates through the cramped room. What other employment is appropriate for a cannibal whose only previous experience is in military operations? There are not many things I know how to do. This is one of them. That doesn't explain why you fled your own unit. In theory, red samurais who are wounded are given the best in medical treatment and cybernetics. If these are insufficient to return them to active duty, they are given a pension and retired. In practice, this is never the case. What? Red Samurai teams do everything together. Eat, sleep, train, play. We learn to think for each other, move as a single entity. When part of that team is broken, it affects everyone. What? Gaichu runs his claws over his scalp, sighing. The other members of the unit would be distracted, thinking about a wounded comrade, and would resent a new member for usurping the old member's place. That seems petty. So the wounded invariably take the same course of action for the good of the team. Ritual suicide, seppuku. That seems very impractical and wasteful. Come on, dude. First of all, you can't adapt to a new member. What are you? Secondly, if a samurai is wounded and they retire from active combat, they can still be like a trainer or like a strategist, or like they can still work for the military even if they're not in front line fighting. But they kill themselves. That's completely insane. Gaichu chuckles softly, shaking his head. I believe that it is effective in most cases, but I also believe I'm worth more alive than dead. Everyone's worth more alive than dead, Gaichu. Yeah, no, this sounds very inefficient. In my case, I became infected while on a sabotage mission against Shiawase in Osaka. The unit was exfiltrating on foot from Naniwa Ward through the Airin Chiku slums. We had not anticipated a ghoul nest on our route. My surprise got the better of me and I was bitten. Understand that since the passage of the Yamato Act, Japan is a pure country. Metahumans are deported, and to be infected with the HMHVV is to be less than an animal. You'll be killed on sight. Since this was, in effect, the same as being permanently crippled in the eyes of the team, it was expected that I would kill myself. That sounds pretty fascist. Gaichu bares his teeth in a vicious grin. When I was younger, I would have argued that you simply did not understand what it means to be Japanese. Oh yeah, what does it mean? I think now, however, that you are correct. The Yamato Act is a convenient way to encourage nationalistic fervor while avoiding the racial problems of other nations by simply removing non-humans. It sounds really inefficient. Because non-humans have their particular talents and you're just like discarding all that potential. Because I was still capable of fighting, I questioned the necessity of suicide. Why should I die if I was still as effective as before? Exactly! Was I not worth having simply because my diet changed? One does not discard a quality tool simply because the surface is stained. That's what I said! Like, okay, so the trolls are big and the dwarves are short. Doesn't mean they can't be productive, right? You're just gonna discard them? You're just gonna deport productive members, like, you're just gonna deport people who would otherwise be productive members of your society. Because of what? Racism. Because you're racist. And that's all it is. I made the decision to leave while the unit was allowing me time to prepare for my expected suicide. I took nothing but my weapons, armor, and a small number of personal mementos. I knew that the unit would hunt me down and kill me. Ghouls are considered vermin in Japan. To have a red samurai become one and refuse to die unconscionable. How long did it take them to find you? They found me 2 weeks after I ran. I was careless as I fled south, and they caught up with me in Fukuoka, but I escaped barely. It was at that point that I decided that I should leave Japan. I knew they would not stop hunting me, but I could make it more difficult for them. Did you grow up in a corporation? Yes, in Kaihanshin, the Kyoto-Osaka Kobe sprawl. It is less populated than Neo-Tokyo, but not by much. I grew up in East Kobe, where my father was posted in a Renraku complex. Gaichu roots around in a nearby box, running his fingertips over several chips before deciding on one. He slots it into his PDA, and a trid photo flickers to life in the space between you. A young man, obviously Gaichu, leans against a railing which overlooks a sprawling harbor complex of skyscrapers and cranes. His school uniform is ripped, and the beginnings of a black eye are forming. Abrasions cover his knuckles and blood dots his pants. Despite this, he's grinning like he's just won the lottery, vibrant, fierce. You look a little beat up. You look like you haven't changed much. Look a little beat up. Ah, that must be on Mount Maya. If I remember right, I gave better than I got in that fight. 3 against 1, but they were out of shape and cocky. I used to cause a lot of trouble when I was in school. My father was constantly raging that I had no sense of responsibility, that I needed to take life more seriously. A cackle erupts from Gaichu, sudden mirth spreading across his face. The final straw was when he bailed me out of jail. Ah, I've been in jail a few times. What did you do? My friends and I stole a delivery van. It had a shipment of Shiawase SimSense decks. Brand new, very expensive. We were going to fence them and use the money to take a trip to Okinawa. Gaichu pauses, cocking his head. Are you familiar with what it's like to grow up in a corporate family? Japan doesn't have a whole lot of crime. This doesn't sound like something that happens in Japan very often. Anyway, not a clue. You have to understand, children are trained to hate rival corporations. We did not regard the theft of Shiawase goods as illegal. We were simply doing our part to ensure Rinraku's supremacy. Oh, this is... okay. This kind of behavior is ignored and even tacitly encouraged by company media. Unfortunately, we were caught by Shiawase security, not Rinraku. What did your father do next? Gaichu clicks his tongue a few times. He seemed reluctant to continue. Well, that is a story for another time, unfortunately. I still have a lot of arranging to do, and I doubt anyone else will be willing to be alone with me in a darkened room. Come back later, we can discuss it further. Alright. Okay, if that's what you want. Gaichu bows politely. It is. And thank you again for your hospitality. You're welcome! Box of mementos. Gaichu's box of personal effects is overflowing with a collection of souvenirs, mementos, and knickknacks. There's no rhyme or reason to the collection of items. They appear to have been thrown in haphazardly. Lying atop the box are a collection of antique Japanese coins inside an overturned wooden mask, and a black lacquered box with gold inlay. Gaichu cocks his head, sniffing the air in your direction. Ah, I see you found my box of personal effects. Please feel free to examine whatever you like within it. Just take care to put them back when you're done. I do not own much, but the things I keep are very precious to me. They are all that remains of my former life. Wooden mask? The wooden mask is extremely light. It's been painted a pale white, and the surface is almost as smooth as porcelain, although it lacks the sheen of lacquer. The face's traits are delicate, almost feminine, and feature lifted eyebrows, bright red lips, and delicately carved teeth. The teeth have been stained a deep black, barely visible past the slightly parted lips. The expression, while kindly, is ambiguous and uncanny. Viewed from above, the expression is one of calm contentment. Shifting the mask to view it at an upward angle causes the expression to seem melancholy, almost pained. Oh, so this is like kabuki theater. So they do this. The mask is so that like the actor can tilt it so the light changes the expression on the mask. It's pretty cool, right? What is this wooden mask, Gaichu? It's a mask from the historical No play. Oh, it's No, not kabuki, my bad. From the No play, Ikuta Atsumori. The face is that of a young samurai. Taira no Atsumori. Gaichu faces your direction, gesturing towards the mask. I had a collection of a dozen or so no masks when I was younger. That is the last remaining one, and my personal favorite. What's the difference between a normal play and no? No actors wear those masks to cover their faces. The angle they hold themselves at changes the expression on the mask, so the acting is highly rigid and controlled. The entire performance is highly ritualized. There's no measure of improvisation allowed, only refinement of the prescribed form. Gaichu folds his arms over his chest, dipping his chin in thought. The words are sung, like in a Western opera, and accompanied by a set of musicians known as a hayashi. The hayashi keeps time with several drums, a flute, and a chorus in the Greek theatrical sense, I mean. Unfortunately, no is an unpopular art in the modern times. I expect this is because all the plays are conducted in classical Japanese, which is not comprehensible to the general public. I have heard that the creators of No, a father and son in the 14th century, took inspiration from magical rituals at Shinto shrines. It is said that by placing masks upon their face, the actors become possessed by the spirits of the characters they play. There are worse fates, I think, than to embody the spirit of a tragic warrior like Atsumori. What's the play about? A young man travels with the priest who raised him to Ikuta Shrine to commune with the spirit of his father, Taira no Atsumori. The young man's father died at the Battle of Ichinotani. When the Tani is the first valley? When the son was only a baby, and he wishes to know who his father was. The pair stay the night in a small hut. In the night, the hermit of the hut explains that he is the ghost of Atsumori. Atsumori has been granted a brief reprieve from his time in the afterlife to meet his son. During the night, they speak of the battle in which Atsumori was killed, the history of the Taira family, and their philosophy. Atsumori fades into darkness as he finishes the tale of the Taira's downfall, just as the family itself faded into obscurity. So think we, yet oh, that we might change this fragile dream of joy into the lasting love of waking life, says Atsumori. Before fading, it is the tale of sorrow, love, and the burden of war upon the dead and living alike. The price one pays for war is not always in one's own blood alone, but in the shattering of one's own family. Yeah, Gaichu. Why is it your favorite? A measure of civic pride, I suppose, and I like the story. Taira no Atsumori died at the Battle of Ichinotani, just outside Kobe. The play takes place primarily at Ikuta Shrine, which is located in downtown Kobe. In old cities in Japan, especially in Keihanshin, I have always felt there is a sense of history. Wherever one looks, the skyline may have skyscrapers and delivery drones, but the foundations are laid on the bones of the dead. Gaichu shrugs, folding his arms across his chest. I think it is important to remember their sacrifices and joys, sorrows and glories. Is it? Gaichu laughs suddenly, shaking his head. This is why sometimes I worry I'm a sentimentalist at heart. You are a sentimentalist. Alright, the lacquered box. The box is a deep, glossy black cube. The edges and corners are rounded rather than sharp. And the gold flake inlay across the surface glitters even in the dim lighting of the room. Sliding the top off, the interior contents are revealed, a calligraphy set, complete with inkstone and block, brushes and paper. Inkstone is basically like dried ink, like you water and then you grind the inkstone and it becomes ink. It's basically like compressed charcoal with like a binder. Blocks and right. Gaichu wrinkles his nose, his expression one of distaste. That thing. It's a beautiful set, but it's a shame that I am unable to make use of it. Surely you used to be able to. Gaichu snorts derisively, stifling laughter. No, my handwriting has always been absolutely terrible. Whatever fanciful stories you may have heard of being able to tell a swordsman's ability by his handwriting, I assure you that they are wrong. The set was a gift from a professor of Japanese literature. He appreciated my interest in the classics, the tale of the Heike, the tale of Genji, and the collection of 10,000 leaves, etc. I think he wished to encourage me to cultivate non-martial interests. Gaichu smiles crookedly and shrugs. I appreciated the gesture, but my attempts at fine calligraphy all mostly resembled excited chickens prancing over paper, their feet soaked in ink. I mean, that's cool too. No, but the thing about calligraphy is, you have to practice. Like, the only way you get better is through practice. So, and everybody sucks when they begin. So you just have to like do it over and over and over and over again, day after day, day after day, and eventually you get better. That's the secret to calligraphy. Like, there's no trick to it. You just have to keep doing it. All right, so that's Gaichu. Gaichu Rector. With a lot of teammates. We have what? Me, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 people. And you can only take 4 people per run.